Hey guys, tonight we are going to dim the lights. We are going to settle in. Maybe grab a cup of something warm. We are going to journey back to a quieter time. We'll explore the hidden corners of a family's history. It's a story not often told. It's filled with those little quirks. It has those slightly odd turns that history seems to love so much. Tonight, we are diving into the curious tale of how a quiet truth. It's a barely whispered secret. It eventually saved an American family from completely falling apart. It's a gentle unraveling. This story is more about the whispers in old attics. It's less about the booming pronouncements of kings. We will avoid any loud noises tonight. We will just drift through the past. We will uncover some gentle oddities. It will be a calm descent into a family's curious journey. It's truly a shocking fact. Many American families harbored secrets so profound. These secrets could reshape their entire lineage. These secrets could invalidate their entire identity. It would alter their very place in the world. Our story tonight begins not with a bang. It begins with a very soft sigh. This sigh echoes through the hushed halls of a rather grand, though slightly crumbling, New England estate. This estate belonged to the formidable and somewhat eccentric Blackwood family. They were known for their old money. They were known for their even older secrets. They were also known for their peculiar collection of taxidermied squirrels. Each squirrel wore a tiny, hand-stitched historical costume. They were all quite judgmental looking. Let's gently float back to the late 19th century. The Blackwood family was a cornerstone of their sleepy coastal town. They were pillars of the community. They funded the local library. They also insisted on naming every single one of their prize-winning dahlias after Roman emperors. It was a charming habit. It was also slightly unnerving. There was Elias Blackwood. He was the stern patriarch. He had a magnificent mustache. He also had a legendary aversion to anything that wasn't precisely on time. Dinner at 7 o'clock meant 7 o'clock, not 7:01, not even 6:59. He was quite strict. He possessed a gaze that could wither lesser men. He also had a rather endearing habit. He would hum opera arias. He would hum them completely off-key. He did this while pruning his roses. It was a tiny, charming detail. It was also an auditory assault. Then there was Beatrice. She was the matriarch. She was a woman of delicate constitution. She also had an iron will. She communicated primarily through raised eyebrows. Her silent judgments were legendary. Her favorite pastime was cataloging every single item. She cataloged every item in their vast, dusty mansion. This included the dust motes. She had a system. It was intricate. It was also completely incomprehensible to anyone else. She was frail. She was also surprisingly good at fencing. She learned it in her youth. It was a detail she rarely mentioned. It was a rather shocking contrast to her usual demure demeanor. The Blackwoods had 3 children. There was Margaret. She was the eldest. She was perpetually lost in books. She had a dreamy disposition. She also had a terrifyingly accurate throwing arm for small pebbles. She would often peg unsuspecting squirrels, not the taxidermied ones. She would only do this if they dared to pilfer her garden berries. Then there was Thomas. He was the middle child. He was a somewhat melancholic artist. He painted incredibly detailed portraits of neglected household appliances. His greatest ambition was to achieve a perfect shade of beige. This beige would accurately capture the existential dread of a broken toaster. Finally, there was young Arthur. He was the youngest. He was a curious boy. He was endlessly fascinated by the hidden passages of the house. He also had an uncanny ability to communicate with the Blackwood family cat, Mittens. Mittens was a fluffy Persian. Mittens generally ignored everyone else. Mittens tolerated Arthur. Arthur seemed to understand Mittens' various meows. These meows ranged from demanding to vaguely annoyed. It was a bizarre relationship. It was also rather sweet. Arthur was prone to whispering secrets to the cat. These secrets included details about the weird old gardener. This gardener wore only one glove. No one ever knew why. The Blackwood family mansion was a character in itself. It was a sprawling Victorian Gothic nightmare. It was filled with creaking floorboards. It had hidden staircases. It also had a pervasive scent of lavender and ancient dust. The house had been in the Blackwood family for generations. Each generation added their own peculiar touch. This included a secret room behind the library. It was rumoured to contain a collection of cursed teacups. It also contained a petrified lizard. The lizard was said to whisper prophecies. These prophecies were usually about the weather. The air in the Blackwood household was thick with unspoken expectations. It was also thick with polite anxieties. Everyone had a role. Everyone played their part. It was like a very slow, slightly awkward play. This play was perpetually stuck in the second act. Elias expected his children to uphold the family name. He expected them to pursue respectable careers. He also expected them to never, ever speak with their mouths full. Beatrice expected perfection in all things domestic. She also expected her teacups to always face north. It was a particular quirk of hers. This detail often flummoxed the new maid's point one evening. A storm raged outside. The wind howled like a banshee. The rain lashed against the windows. The Blackwood family gathered in the drawing room. They were sipping lukewarm tea. They were trying very hard to ignore the drafts. Elias was attempting to read a financial report. He was also subtly correcting Thomas's posture. Beatrice was meticulously polishing a silver thimble. Margaret was absorbed in a novel that it was a rather scandalous one about a runaway nun. Arthur was quietly attempting to teach Mittens how to play chess. Mittens was mostly just batting at the pieces. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the house. It was not thunder. It was not lightning. It was the sound of a very old, very heavy portrait falling from the wall. The portrait depicted a stern-looking ancestor. This ancestor was named Great Aunt Mildred. Mildred was rumoured to have once ridden a unicycle through the town square. She did it completely naked. This portrait had hung in the drawing room for decades. It had stared down at generations of Blackwoods. It stared with a gaze that suggested she knew all their secrets. The portrait crashed to the floor. It narrowly missed Elias's foot. He let out a rather undignified squeak. Everyone jumped. Mittens, however, remained completely unfazed. Mittens continued to bat at a pawn. When they rushed to inspect the damage, they found something curious. Behind the fallen portrait, a small, hidden compartment was revealed. It was covered by a loose panel of wallpaper. This panel had obviously come undone with the impact. Elias, ever the pragmatist, immediately thought of burglars. He was always worried about the silverware. Beatrice, ever the meticulous one, worried about the dust the fall had created. Margaret was intrigued by the mystery. Thomas was already sketching the dramatic angles of the shattered frame. Arthur, however, was the first to reach the compartment. He peered inside with wide, curious eyes. He pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box. It was a very old box. The box felt heavy in Arthur's hands. It was made of dark, aged wood. It was adorned with intricate carvings. These carvings depicted strange, unfamiliar symbols. Elias, regaining his composure, took the box from Arthur. He examined it with a skeptical frown. "What on earth is this?" he muttered. His voice carried a hint of annoyance. He was already thinking about the mess. Beatrice, overcoming her initial shock, gently took the box. Her delicate fingers traced the carvings. Her brow furrowed in concentration. She had a surprising knowledge of ancient symbols. This knowledge came from her obscure hobby. She collected antique knitting needles. Each needle had a unique historical marking. She often claimed they whispered stories to her. Inside the box, they found a stack of faded letters. There was also a small, tarnished silver locket. There was also a single, dried rose. The letters were bound with a fragile silk ribbon. It was a ribbon that had once been a vibrant crimson. Now it was a pale, forgotten pink. The air in the room seemed to thicken. A strange anticipation settled over them. It was a soft, almost imperceptible hum. Elias, ever the family historian, carefully untied the ribbon. He began to read the first letter aloud. His voice, usually so precise, wavered slightly. The letter was dated to the early 1800s. It was addressed to a dearest Eleanor. The handwriting was elegant. It was also undeniably feminine. The letter spoke of a clandestine love. It spoke of a forbidden union. It spoke of a quiet desperation. It was written by a woman named Isabella. She claimed to be carrying Eleanor's child. This child was not from Eleanor's husband. This child was from another. The letter detailed a heartbreaking plea. Isabella asked Eleanor to raise the child as her own. She asked her to protect the child from societal judgment. She asked her to give the child a name. This name would link them to the respected Blackwood lineage. A stunned silence filled the room. Elias's face had gone pale. Beatrice's eyes were wide with disbelief. Margaret dropped her scandalous novel. Thomas stopped sketching. Arthur simply stared at the letters. He sensed the gravity of the moment. Mittens, ever the stoic observer, merely yawned. "This cannot be," Elias finally whispered. His voice was barely audible. "This is preposterous." He clutched the letter. His knuckles were white. The very foundation of his carefully constructed family history was shaking. It was wobbling like a poorly balanced jelly mold. The subsequent letters corroborated the story. They revealed a detailed, heartbreaking narrative. Eleanor Blackwood, Elias's great-great-grandmother, had indeed taken in Isabella's child. The child was named Arthur. He was raised as her own. This Arthur was the true progenitor of their branch of the Blackwood family. He was not a direct descendant of the main Blackwood line. This meant that Elias was not a direct descendant. His children were not direct descendants. Their entire claim to the Blackwood name, to the Blackwood estate, was based on a lie. It was a quiet truth. It was a truth hidden for generations. The initial shock slowly gave way to a complex swirl of emotions. Elias was furious. He felt betrayed. He felt his entire identity was a sham. He saw his meticulously crafted lineage crumble. He saw his very existence become a delicate house of cards. Beatrice was surprisingly contemplative. She saw the human drama behind the deception. She appreciated the difficult choices. Margaret was captivated by the romantic tragedy. She saw it as a real-life novel. Thomas saw the intricate patterns of human fallibility. He considered sketching a portrait of a broken family tree. Young Arthur, our Arthur, felt a strange sense of connection. He shared a name with the hidden ancestor. He felt a peculiar bond with the long-lost story. He imagined the whispered conversations. He imagined the stolen glances. He imagined the profound love that must have existed. It was a hidden love. The quiet truth had finally emerged. It had been brought forth by a clumsy portrait and a raging storm. This truth was a bomb. It exploded silently within the Blackwood family. It threatened to shatter everything they knew. The legacy of generations. The pride of a name. The very foundation of their identity. All were suddenly called into question. Elias retreated into his study. He spent days poring over old ledgers. He examined family trees. He scrutinized legal documents. He searched for anything that might refute the letters. He sought any tiny loophole. He wanted to preserve his version of reality. He was desperate. He emerged only for meals. Even then, he remained silent. His mustache seemed to droop. His operatic humming ceased completely. It was a truly sad state of affairs. Beatrice, meanwhile, began a quiet investigation of her own. She started by sifting through the family archives. These archives were primarily comprised of Elias's grandmother's extensive collection of hatpins. Each hatpin was meticulously dated. Each had a tiny note describing the occasion it was worn. She found subtle hints. She found minor discrepancies. She discovered small omissions in the official family history. These details, once dismissed as mere clerical errors, now took on new significance. They hinted at a deliberate erasure. They suggested a conscious effort to conceal. Margaret, with her penchant for dramatic narratives, immersed herself in the letters. She imagined Isabella and Eleanor. She imagined their forbidden love. She imagined their sacrifice. She envisioned a desperate, courageous act. This act was driven by love. It was driven by a powerful desire to protect a child. She romanticized the entire affair. She sometimes forgot the practical implications. She saw only the grand, sweeping emotions. Thomas, ever the detached observer, started painting. He painted a series of dark, abstract canvases. They explored themes of identity, legacy, and deception. His beige period was momentarily interrupted. He experimented with darker hues. He embraced unsettling textures. His art now reflected the unsettling truths that had invaded their once predictable lives. His broken toaster still sat in a corner. It felt even more melancholic now. Arthur, our young Arthur, continued to confide in Mittens. He explained the letters to the cat. He described the concept of a secret ancestor. Mittens, for her part, offered surprisingly insightful meows. These meows were usually accompanied by a slow blink. Arthur felt a growing sense of responsibility. He felt it was his duty to understand this truth. He felt it was his duty to protect it. He believed the secret had been waiting for him. It was waiting for a Blackwood named Arthur. The house, once filled with predictable routines, now hummed with an almost palpable tension. The taxidermied squirrels seemed to stare with knowing eyes. The cursed teacups felt heavier. The ghost of Great Aunt Mildred's unicycling seemed to float through the halls. The family was a ship adrift. It was cut loose from its ancestral moorings. They were navigating uncharted waters. It was a very slow, slightly uncomfortable navigation. One crisp autumn morning, Elias emerged from his study. He looked gaunt. He looked defeated. His mustache seemed to have lost its luster. He carried a large, leather-bound volume. It was the official Blackwood family Bible. It was filled with meticulous records of births, deaths, and marriages. Each entry was penned in elegant, spidery script. He placed it on the dining table. It landed with a thud. The sound echoed in the quiet room. "I have found nothing," he stated. His voice was hollow. No counter-evidence. No hidden codicils. The letters, they appear to be authentic. He slumped into a chair. The weight of generations seemed to settle upon his shoulders. He felt the entire edifice of his identity crumbling. He saw the very name he bore as a mask. Beatrice nodded solemnly. "I suspected as much," she said softly. Her voice held a rare tenderness. The omissions in the ledgers. The peculiar timing of Eleanor's maternity leave. It all aligns. She looked at her husband. Her gaze was filled with a complex blend of pity and understanding. She knew how much he valued their lineage. Margaret, ever the optimist, piped up. "But think of the romance, Papa. A love so powerful it defied convention." Elias merely grunted. He was not swayed by such poetic notions. He was focused on the practical implications. The social standing. The inheritance. The judgment of the town. These were his immediate concerns. Thomas, ever the philosopher, mused aloud. Perhaps identity is not solely about bloodlines. Perhaps it is about the choices we make, the lives we live, the paint we choose for our toasters. Elias stared at him blankly. He did not appreciate philosophical musings at this critical juncture. He still preferred beige, even in crisis. Arthur, still clutching mittens, spoke hesitantly. "Does this mean we are not Blackwoods?" His innocent question hung in the air. It was a simple question. It struck at the heart of their predicament. It was the question they had all been avoiding. Elias sighed deeply. "In a manner of speaking, Arthur," he began, his voice heavy, "we are Blackwoods by name. We are not Blackwoods by direct inheritance of the name's original blood. We are Blackwoods by adoption, by choice, by a very old, very quiet truth." He looked around at his family. His eyes held a mixture of fear and something else. It was a glimmer of something approaching acceptance. The revelation of this quiet truth threatened to tear the Blackwood family apart. Elias saw it as a profound dissonance. Beatrice saw it as a poignant tragedy. Margaret saw it as a thrilling secret. Thomas saw it as an artistic muse. Each reacted in their own distinct, Blackwood-esque way. Their differing interpretations caused friction. Their individual responses led to silent arguments. These arguments manifested in increasingly rigid dining table etiquette. They manifested in disapproving glances over teacups. They manifested in the choice of bread rolls. The initial shock soon morphed into a quiet, simmering resentment. Elias felt a deep sense of humiliation. He saw his ancestors' legacy tainted. He saw his own life as built on a facade. He started spending even more time in his study. He would emerge only to deliver cryptic pronouncements about the fragility of reputation. He would then retreat once more. He began to wear increasingly formal attire. He did this even for breakfast. It was his way of asserting a dignity he felt was slipping away. Beatrice, usually so composed, found herself increasingly withdrawn. She stopped cataloguing the dust motes. She started spending hours in the garden. She would sit among the dahlias. She would whisper to them. She would tell them about the quiet truth. The dahlias, of course, offered no discernible response. Margaret, however, flourished in the aftermath of the revelation. She found the secret invigorating. It added a layer of mystery to their otherwise predictable lives. She began writing her own stories. These stories were inspired by Isabella and Eleanor. She imagined their clandestine meetings. She imagined their whispered plans. She developed a fondness for wearing dark cloaks. She would wander the estate at dusk. She would pretend to be a tragic heroine. She even started talking to the taxidermied squirrels. She asked them for advice. They remained stoically silent. Thomas, in his artistic fervor, found a new depth to his work. His paintings became less about broken appliances. They became more about broken narratives. He started a series titled Fractured Lineage. It featured unsettling images. These images included a cracked porcelain teacup spilling blood-red tea. It showed a wilting dahlia with human eyes. His art, once melancholic, was now positively morose. Elias did not approve. He still hoped for a nice still life of a pair. Young Arthur, the catalyst for the discovery, felt the tension acutely. He understood that the secret was causing pain. He saw his family, once a solid, albeit quirky, unit, drifting apart. He tried to bridge the gap. He tried by telling his father funny stories about mittens. He tried by bringing his mother freshly picked flowers. He tried by asking Margaret about her dramatic narratives. But the quiet truth, though fascinating, had become a wedge. It was a subtle, invisible force. It pushed them further and further apart. The Blackwood dining table, once a place of polite, if stilted, conversation, became a battleground of silent grievances. Elias would ostentatiously clear his throat. He would do this if anyone spoke out of turn. Beatrice would meticulously arrange her silverware. She would dot his with a precise, almost aggressive clink. Margaret would dramatically sigh. She would do this if the conversation veered too far into mundane topics. Thomas would sketch caricatures of his family members on his napkin. He would do this with a surprisingly sharp pencil. Arthur watched it all. He watched with a growing sense of unease. He felt the once strong threads of their family unraveling. The Blackwood estate itself began to reflect this internal discord. Dust motes, once catalogued by Beatrice, now danced freely in the sunbeams. The once pristine gardens started to show signs of neglect. Elias's prize-winning dahlias drooped sadly. Their Roman emperor names seemed to mock their faded glory. The taxidermied squirrels seemed to sag a little. Their judgmental stares softened into something akin to weary resignation. The air grew heavy. It was heavy with unspoken words. It was heavy with unresolved questions. Arthur noticed the subtle shifts. He noticed the changes in the house. He noticed the changes in his family. He often found solace in the hidden passages of the mansion. He would whisper to Mittens. He would share his worries with the cat. Mittens, in turn, would offer comforting purrs. Mittens would rub against his leg. Arthur felt an unusual responsibility. He felt it deep within his young heart. He felt it was up to him. He felt it was his job to somehow mend things. He needed to reweave the fabric of his fractured family. He remembered the locket. It was found in the hidden box. It was still tucked away in the drawing room. He had glimpsed it only briefly. It had a tarnished silver surface. He wondered about its significance. He wondered about its secrets. One afternoon, while the rest of the family was preoccupied with their individual forms of silent suffering, Arthur decided to retrieve it. He crept back into the drawing room. The fallen portrait still lay in pieces. Its shattered frame was a stark reminder of the initial discovery. He found the box. It was exactly where they had left it. He opened it carefully. The dried rose petals crumbled slightly. The faded letters felt fragile beneath his touch. He picked up the locket. It was cold in his hand. He noticed a faint indentation on its surface. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible seam. He realized it was designed to open. His small fingers fumbled with the mechanism. He pressed lightly. He tried to twist it. It resisted his attempts. Mittens, who had followed him silently, rubbed against his leg. She let out a soft meow. Arthur looked at the cat. He had an idea. He remembered the strange symbols. They were carved into the wooden box. He remembered Beatrice's collection of knitting needles. He remembered her knowledge of ancient markings. Perhaps the locket had a similar secret. Perhaps it held a key to its own opening. He knew he couldn't ask Beatrice directly. She was too withdrawn. She was too consumed by her own thoughts. He decided to observe her. He would observe her from a distance. He needed to understand her unique way of deciphering such things. He watched her in the garden. He watched her among the wilting dahlias. He watched her as she gently touched their petals. She moved with a strange, deliberate grace. She seemed to be listening. She seemed to be listening to the silent language of the plants. One evening, he saw her sketching. She was sketching in a small, leather-bound notebook. It was a notebook he had never seen before. She was drawing intricate patterns. These patterns resembled the symbols on the box. He watched her from behind a heavy velvet curtain. He saw her using a particular technique. She pressed firmly on one point. She twisted gently in a specific direction. It was a precise, almost ritualistic movement. She then held the paper to the light. She scrutinized the patterns with intense focus. Arthur filed this information away. He knew it was important. He felt a surge of hope. He returned to the locket. He replicated Beatrice's technique. He found the tiny seam on the locket surface. He pressed firmly. He twisted gently. A small, almost inaudible click echoed in the quiet room. The locket sprang open. Inside, nestled within the tarnished silver, were two miniature portraits. One depicted a woman. She had kind eyes. She had a gentle smile. She had flowing dark hair. The other portrait showed a man. He had a strong jawline. He had a serious expression. He had a hint of warmth in his gaze. He recognized the woman. It was Isabella. Her likeness matched the description in the letters. The man, however, was a stranger. He was not Eleanor's husband. He was not any Blackwood ancestor Arthur had ever seen. Beneath the portraits, a tiny inscription was etched. It was almost invisible to the naked eye. Arthur squinted. He read the delicate script. Veritas et amor. Truth and love. He felt a jolt. It was an electric jolt. This was more than just a locket. This was a testament. It was a testament to the quiet truth. It was a testament to the profound love that had started it all. He knew he had to show this to his family. He knew he had to bring it to them. It was a piece of the puzzle. It was a missing link. It offered a new perspective. It offered a different kind of truth. He rushed to his father's study. He found Elias hunched over ledgers. He was muttering about property deeds. He was bemoaning ancestral obligations. "Papa," Arthur said softly. His voice was small. He held out the open locket. "Look." Elias looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. His face was drawn. He saw the locket. He saw the portraits. His hand trembled as he took it. He stared at the images. He recognized Isabella. He recognized the face he had only imagined from the letters. His gaze then shifted to the man. "Who is this?" he whispered. His voice was full of confusion. Arthur explained the inscription. He explained Veritas et amor. Elias repeated the words aloud. He repeated them slowly. A flicker of something crossed his face. It was not anger. It was not betrayal. It was curiosity. It was a glimmer of human emotion. He looked at the gentle face of Isabella. He looked at the resolute face of the unknown man. He saw a story in their eyes. He saw a story beyond ledgers and titles. He then took the locket to Beatrice. She was in the garden. She was still communing with her neglected dahlias. Her face was pale. She looked weary. Arthur presented the locket. She took it with a sigh. She opened it. She saw the portraits. Her eyes widened. "Isabella," she breathed. Her voice was barely a whisper. She recognized the love in the woman's eyes. She recognized the strength in the man's posture. She read the inscription. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. It was a tear of understanding. It was a tear of empathy. Margaret, busy writing a soliloquy for a tragic heroine, who remarkably resembled Isabella, was next. Arthur showed her the locket. Her eyes lit up. "Oh, Arthur," she exclaimed. "The lover. The forbidden romance. This is perfect." She immediately integrated the new information. She wove it into her dramatic narrative. She saw the inscription. She felt the weight of its meaning. It validated her romantic ideals. It deepened the story. Thomas was in his makeshift studio. He was still painting his morose, fractured lineage series. Arthur brought him the locket. Thomas studied it intently. He looked at the faces. He saw the intertwining destinies. He saw the complex emotions. He saw the beauty in the quiet truth. "Veritas et amor," he murmured. He dipped his brush into a new color. It was a softer hue. It was a subtle blend of blue and green. It represented hope. The locket, with its simple message and hidden faces, acted as a balm. It was a soothing ointment for the family's raw wounds. Elias began to see the story not as additioner, but as a profound act of courage. He saw Isabella's love. He saw Eleanor's sacrifice. He saw a different kind of legacy. It was a legacy of compassion. It was a legacy of protection. His mustache regained a faint hint of its former jaunty curl. His humming, though still off-key, returned to his rose pruning sessions. Beatrice found renewed purpose. She began to see their family history not as a rigid chronicle, but as a tapestry. It was a tapestry woven with threads of different colors. Some threads were bright. Some threads were dark. All were necessary. All were beautiful. She started cataloging again. She cataloged the flowers in her garden. She noted their resilience. She noted their quiet strength. She even found a new enthusiasm. She started collecting rare, historical buttons. Each button had its own unique story. Margaret, inspired by the locket, expanded her stories. She included themes of redemption. She included themes of acceptance. She still loved the tragedy. She still loved the drama. But she now saw the enduring power of love. She saw it even in the face of adversity. She spoke less to the taxidermied squirrels. She spoke more to her family. She shared her imaginative narratives. She shared them with a new, gentler enthusiasm. Thomas, in a surprising turn, began painting portraits of his family again. They were not abstract. They were not morose. They were portraits filled with light. They were filled with understanding. He painted Elias. He painted him with a gentle smile. He painted Beatrice. He painted her with a knowing gaze. He painted Margaret. He painted her surrounded by blooming flowers. He painted Arthur. He painted him with the locket. He placed mittens at his feet. The broken toaster was relegated to a still life in the background. It looked almost content. Arthur felt a deep sense of peace. He had helped his family. He had helped them find their way back. The quiet truth, once a source of division, had become a source of unity. It had become a source of strength. It was no longer a secret to be hidden. It was a story to be cherished. It was a testament to love. It was a testament to resilience. The Blackwood family mansion, once filled with tension, now breathed easier. The creaking floorboards seemed to sing a different tune. The hidden passages no longer felt ominous. They felt protective. The pervasive scent of lavender and ancient dust was now mingled with the faint aroma of fresh paint. It also mingled with the sweet scent of Beatrice's dahlias. The house felt alive again. It felt whole. They realized something profound. Their identity was not defined by bloodline alone. It was defined by shared experiences. It was defined by enduring love. It was defined by the choices they made. They chose to embrace the truth. They chose to embrace each other. Elias, once so concerned with his name, now understood. The name was less important than the character behind it. Elias stood before them. His back was straight. His mustache was perfectly trimmed. "We have lived under a faucet," he began. His voice was steady. "We have allowed pride to blind us. We have allowed fear to separate us." He paused. He looked at each of his family members. His gaze lingered on Arthur. But truth, once revealed, cannot be undone. He held up the locket. Its silver gleamed in the lamplight. This locket tells a story. It is a story of love. It is a story of sacrifice. It is a story of a difficult choice made long ago. Beatrice stepped forward. She placed a hand on his arm. "It is our story, Elias," she said gently. "It makes us who we are. It makes us stronger. It makes us more human." Her voice held an unusual strength. Her eyes were bright with conviction. Margaret, unusually silent, simply nodded. Thomas had brought his latest painting. It was a portrait of the family. They were gathered around a glowing fireplace. It showed them looking at each other with warmth. Arthur, holding mittens, felt a profound sense of belonging. He felt it more than ever before. Elias cleared his throat. It was not a sign of annoyance. It was a sign of emotion. "We are the Blackwoods," he declared. His voice resonated with newfound authority. "Not by blood alone. We are Blackwoods by the love that binds us. We are Blackwoods by the stories we carry. We are Blackwoods by the truth we embrace." He looked at Arthur. And perhaps, young Arthur, it took another Arthur to show us the way. The family exchanged glances. They were no longer filled with silent judgment. They were filled with understanding. They were filled with a quiet affection. The storm outside raged on. Inside, however, a different kind of calm had settled. It was a calm born of acceptance. It was a calm born of unity. The quiet truth had not torn them apart. It had, in fact, saved them. It had saved them from the suffocating grip of expectation. It had saved them from the rigid confines of a false identity. It had saved them from drifting into isolation. It had reminded them of the enduring power of family. It had reminded them of the profound importance of truth. The Blackwood family continued their lives. They were changed. They were forever altered by the revelation. Elias became slightly less rigid. He still valued punctuality. He occasionally allowed dinner to be served at 7:02. Beatrice continued her cataloguing. Her new button collection grew exponentially. Each button had a detailed story. Margaret pursued her writing with renewed passion. Her stories gained depth and emotional resonance. Thomas's art flourished. He explored themes of connection and lineage. His palette brightened considerably. Arthur, our young Arthur, grew into a thoughtful, compassionate young man. He retained his uncanny ability to communicate with Mittens. He also developed a deep respect for history. He respected history not just as a collection of facts. He respected it as a living narrative. He respected it as a tapestry of human experience. He understood the power of secrets. He understood the liberating power of truth. He always kept the locket close. It was a tangible reminder. It was a symbol of their unexpected salvation. The Blackwood mansion, once a repository of secrets, became a home. It was a place where stories were shared. It was a place where truth was honored. It was a place where love, in all its complicated forms, reigned supreme. The taxidermied squirrels continued their judgmental stares. Now, however, they seemed to be approving. They seemed to be nodding in silent agreement. The cursed teacups still sat in their secret room. They now whispered prophecies of happy endings. They whispered prophecies of enduring love. The family's peculiar quirks remained. Elias still hummed opera off key. Beatrice still insisted on north-facing teacups. Margaret still enjoyed a scandalous novel. Thomas still occasionally contemplated the existential dread of kitchen appliances. But these quirks were no longer symbols of isolation. They were markers of individuality. They were woven into the larger, more inclusive fabric of their family. They were cherished. They were celebrated. The quiet truth had transformed them. It had transformed their understanding of themselves. It had transformed their understanding of their place in the world. They learned that a family's strength comes not from an unbroken line. It comes from an unbreakable bond. It comes from the willingness to embrace authenticity. It comes from the courage to face the past. It comes from the ability to love. This is not just the story of the Blackwoods. It is a reflection of countless families. Many families harbor their own quiet truths. Many families wrestle with hidden histories. Many families strive to find connection amidst complexity. It is a reminder. It is a reminder that truth, no matter how unsettling, ultimately sets us free. It is a reminder that love, in its purest form, always finds a way. It is a reminder that every family has a story. Some stories are louder. Some stories are quieter. All stories deserve to be heard. The sun eventually set on the Blackwood estate. The shadows lengthened. The stars emerged. The house settled into a peaceful slumber. It carried within its walls the echoes of generations. It carried the echoes of secrets. It carried the echoes of revelations. It carried the echoes of enduring love. It was a quiet kind of peace. It was a profound kind of peace. It was a peace earned through honesty. It was a peace forged in acceptance. The journey into their history had been tumultuous. It had been unsettling. It had been ultimately rewarding. It showed them that identity is fluid. It showed them that legacy is complex. It showed them that love is the strongest foundation. This quiet truth, revealed by a falling portrait and a curious boy, saved them. It saved them not just from falling apart. It saved them by bringing them closer together. It saved them by making them truly, authentically, Blackwood. It was a beautiful, strange, and utterly human story. It continues to echo through the quiet halls. It echoes through the whispering trees. It echoes through the heart of every member of the Blackwood family. It forever changed them. It made them whole that IT made them whole. The story could have ended there. Life, however, is rarely so neat. The Blackwoods had found their new normal. It was a normal infused with a deeper understanding. It was also a normal still full of quirky details. Elias continued his meticulous rose pruning. His off-key opera hums were now almost endearing. Beatrice embraced her rare button collection. She found joy in their unique histories. Margaret became a published author. Her novels explored complex family dynamics. Thomas found success as a portrait artist. He specialized in capturing hidden truths. Young Arthur, our Arthur, thrived. He pursued his fascination with history. He pursued it with a keen, perceptive mind. Mittens, ever present, continued her silent oversight. She was the family's furry, unflappable confidant. The Blackwood mansion, though settled, still held its own mysteries. Some secrets lingered in the shadows. They waited for their own opportune moment. The cursed teacups still whispered. They whispered from their secret room. The petrified lizard still offered prophecies. Its prophecies were still about the weather. The taxidermied squirrels, however, began to change. Their judgmental glares softened entirely. They seemed to possess a gentle knowingness. It was a subtle transformation. It was a remarkable one. Arthur often revisited the hidden compartment. He would check on the wooden box. He would examine the faded letters. He would hold the silver locket. He felt a deep connection to Isabella and Eleanor. He felt a bond with their courageous story. He often wondered about the man in the locket. He was the unknown lover. He was the biological father of the first Arthur. The letters mentioned him only vaguely. They spoke of a forbidden love. They spoke of a mysterious circumstance. He was a silent presence. He was a pivotal figure. One rainy afternoon, Arthur was exploring the dusty library. He was searching for a particular book. It was a book on ancient cartography. He stumbled upon a loose floorboard. It was behind a towering bookshelf. Curiosity, his constant companion, spurred him on. He pried open the board. He found another hidden compartment. It was smaller than the first. It was perfectly concealed. Inside, he discovered a single, leather-bound journal. Its pages were brittle. Its cover was worn. It was secured with a tarnished brass clasp. The journal looked incredibly old. He opened it carefully. The handwriting was neat. It was elegant. It was surprisingly familiar. He recognized it immediately. It was the same hand as Isabella's letters. This journal belonged to her. A tremor of excitement ran through Arthur. This was a new layer. This was an untold chapter. He rushed to his parents. Elias was in his study. He was balancing the household accounts. Beatrice was in the drawing room. She was polishing a particularly ornate button. They both stopped their tasks. They listened intently. Arthur explained his discovery. He presented the journal. Elias took the journal. He examined it with uncharacteristic awe. "Isabella's journal," he murmured. His voice was hushed. Another piece of the puzzle. Beatrice, ever intuitive, felt the weight of history. She saw the delicate pages. She sensed the deeper truths they held. Margaret was called. Thomas was summoned. The family gathered once more. They gathered in the quiet of the drawing room. Elias began to read aloud. His voice was steady this time. It was filled with respect. Isabella's journal chronicled her life. It detailed her early years. It spoke of her family's modest circumstances. It spoke of her exceptional education. Her family was not wealthy. They valued knowledge above all else. She was fluent in several languages. She was a gifted musician. She was also an avid astronomer. These were unusual pursuits for a woman of her time. The journal entries detailed her clandestine romance. They revealed the identity of the mysterious man. His name was Alistair Thorne. He was not a Blackwood. He was not a man of high society. He was a brilliant cartographer. He was also an explorer. He was mapping the uncharted territories of the American West. He was a man of passion. He was a man of integrity. He was deeply in love with Isabella. Their love was profound. It was undeniable. It was also impossible. Alistair was engaged. He was engaged to a woman of social standing. His family desperately needed her dowry. Isabella herself was already betrothed. Her family had arranged a marriage. It was to a respectable, albeit dull, merchant. Society's rules were unbreakable. They were rigid. They were unforgiving. Isabella's journal revealed her anguish. It revealed her joy. It revealed her fear. She documented stolen moments. She documented whispered promises. She documented their shared dreams. They dreamed of a life together. They dreamed of a future far from societal constraints. Their love blossomed in secret. It defied every expectation. It challenged every convention. Then came the entry about the child. It was written with a trembling hand. It was filled with both terror and elation. She was pregnant. It was Alistair's child. Her despair was palpable. Her family would disown her. Alistair's future would be ruined. Their child would be an outcast. She contemplated drastic measures. She considered running away. She considered disappearing. But then, an unexpected turn. Eleanor Blackwood entered the narrative. Isabella wrote of their unlikely friendship. Eleanor was society's darling. She was also kind-hearted. She was surprisingly rebellious. Eleanor discovered Isabella's secret. She offered a shocking solution. Eleanor herself was barren. Her marriage to the elder Blackwood was a loveless arrangement. It was a union of convenience. She longed for a child. She longed for purpose. Eleanor proposed to raise Isabella's child as her own. She would give the child a name. She would give the child a legacy. She would protect both Isabella and Alistair. Isabella was initially hesitant. She wrestled with the decision. Giving up her child was unthinkable. But the alternative was ruin. It was certain heartbreak. It was a life of shame for her beloved child. Alistair, meanwhile, embarked on a perilous expedition. He sought a legendary gold mine. He hoped to secure his fortune. He aimed to free Isabella from her arranged marriage. He wanted to claim their child. He promised to return. He promised to fight for their love. His departure was heartbreaking. It was filled with desperate hopes. The journal ended abruptly. The last entry was brief. It was a simple phrase. Awaiting Alistair's return. Our little Arthur is safe. There was no mention of his return. There was no explanation for Isabella's fate. Her story simply ceased. It ended on a note of poignant uncertainty. The Blackwood family sat in stunned silence. The journal offered answers. It also presented new questions. Alistair Thorne. Who was he? What happened to him? What happened to Isabella after the journal ended? Elias was captivated. Beatrice was moved to tears. Margaret was already envisioning a trilogy. Thomas began sketching Alistair's imagined face. Arthur felt a surge of protectiveness. He felt it for this quiet, courageous woman. He felt it for this elusive cartographer. We must find out, Arthur declared. His young voice held a new resolve. We must discover what happened to Alistair. We must learn Isabella's complete story. Elias, usually hesitant to disrupt his routines, agreed. His sense of family history had broadened. His sense of justice had deepened. The search began. It was a new collective endeavor. Elias utilized his vast network. He contacted historical societies. He contacted archival institutions. He sought any mention of Alistair Thorne. He looked for a cartographer. He looked for an explorer. Beatrice, with her meticulous eye for detail, delved into old maps. She scrutinized geographical records. She looked for clues in obscure place names. Margaret scoured old newspapers. She sought any mention of expeditions. She sought any mention of missing persons. Thomas, surprisingly, joined the research. He found a new fascination with historical data. He saw it as another form of narrative. Arthur, with Mittens as his silent assistant, focused on the locket. He re-examined the inscription. Veritas et amor. Truth and love. He felt a stronger connection to the man pictured. He felt a stronger connection to Isabella. He believed their story deserved completion. Weeks turned into months. The Blackwood mansion buzzed with activity. It was a different kind of buzz. It was a buzz of shared purpose. Elias sometimes forgot to hum opera. Beatrice sometimes forgot to orient her teacups north. Their quirks were still there. They were now secondary to their quest. Finally, a breakthrough came. It came from an unexpected source. Elias received a dusty package. It was from a small historical society. It was located in a remote mining town. The town was nestled in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The package contained old newspaper clippings. It contained a faded photograph. It also contained a handwritten letter. The clippings detailed a tragic mining accident. It occurred in the early 1800s. A brilliant young cartographer was among the victims. His name was Alistair Thorne. He had indeed found a rich gold vein. His efforts, however, were cut short. A cave-in claimed his life. The photograph showed a group of grim-faced miners. Alistair Thorne was among them. His face matched the portrait in the locket. The letter was written by a local clergyman. It was addressed to Alistair's estranged family. It informed them of his death. It also contained a poignant detail. Alistair had carried a small, intricately carved wooden box. He had carried it always. Inside the box, he had kept two things. He kept a stack of faded letters. He kept a small, tarnished silver locket. These items were identical to the ones found in the Blackwood family's hidden compartment. A profound silence fell upon the Blackwood family. The truth was now complete. Alistair Thorne had returned. He had returned in spirit. He had returned to claim Isabella. He had returned to claim their child. Fate, however, had intervened. His death meant Isabella's secret remained. It meant Arthur's true lineage stayed hidden. It meant Eleanor's compassionate act solidified the family's future. The discovery brought a new wave of emotions. Elias felt a deep sadness. He felt it for Alistair's lost potential. He felt it for Isabella's enduring heartbreak. Beatrice felt a profound empathy. She felt it for their sacrifices. Margaret wept openly. She mourned the tragic lovers. Thomas, surprisingly, found a new creative spark. He saw the completeness of the tragedy. He saw the beauty in its unfolding. Arthur, our Arthur, felt a surge of understanding. The locket was a testament. It was a testament to enduring love. It was a testament to unwavering hope. It was a symbol of a promise unfulfilled. He saw the courage of Isabella. He saw the resilience of Alistair. He saw the profound generosity of Eleanor. The quiet truth was no longer just about their adoption. It was about a grander, more heartbreaking romance. Elias called another family meeting. It was held in the drawing room. This time, there was no storm outside. The sun streamed through the windows. It illuminated the newly installed landscape painting. He held up the newspaper clippings. He held up the photograph. Alistair Thorne, he announced. His voice was firm. The true progenitor of our branch. A man of courage. A man of honor. A man who died trying to claim his love and his family. He then looked at Arthur. Young Arthur, he said, a rare softness in his eyes. You carry his name. You carry his spirit of curiosity. You carry his quest for truth. Arthur felt a warmth spread through him. He felt a deep sense of pride. Beatrice spoke next. And Isabella, she said gently, a woman of profound strength, a woman of unwavering love. Her sacrifice allowed our family to endure. She held up Isabella's journal. Her words live on. Margaret, with a dramatic flair, declared, "They are our Romeo and Juliet, but with a happier, more enduring legacy." Elias allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. Thomas merely nodded. He was already composing his next series of paintings. He called it Unbroken Promise. The Blackwood family had found more than just their identity. They had found their origin story. It was a story woven with love. It was woven with sacrifice. It was woven with tragic loss. It was also woven with profound compassion. The quiet truth had expanded. It had deepened. It had become a richer, more vibrant narrative. The Blackwood mansion, once a museum of secrets, became a living archive. Isabella's journal was carefully preserved. Alistair's photograph was framed. It was placed next to the locket. The hidden compartment was no longer hidden. It was a place of honor. It was a place for remembrance. Arthur understood something fundamental. History was not merely dates and names. It was the beating heart of humanity. It was the intricate dance of love and loss. It was the quiet courage of everyday people. He carried this understanding with him. He carried it into his future. He carried it through his life. The Blackwood family's peculiar quirks continued. They were now imbued with new meaning. Elias's punctuality was a tribute. It was a tribute to the preciousness of time. It was a tribute to lives cut short. Beatrice's north-facing teacups were an homage. They were an homage to the cosmic dance of fate. Margaret's dramatic narratives were now grounded. They were grounded in the powerful truths of their own family. Thomas's art evolved. He captured the silent dignity of ordinary objects. He imbued them with profound emotional resonance. Arthur, our young Arthur, found his true calling. He became a renowned historian. He dedicated his life to uncovering hidden family stories. He sought out the forgotten narratives. He sought out the quiet truths that shaped generations. He understood their power. He understood their importance. He always carried the locket. It was a constant reminder. It was a symbol of his family's journey. It was a symbol of their unexpected salvation. The Blackwood mansion became a symbol in the community. It was a symbol of authenticity. It was a symbol of resilience. It was a place where history came alive. It was a place where truth was celebrated. The taxidermied squirrels seemed to smile. Their costumes seemed to shimmer. The cursed teacups whispered. They whispered stories of enduring love. They whispered stories of shared humanity. The Blackwoods learned that a family's legacy is not about perfection. It is about humanity. It is about the messy, complicated, beautiful tapestry of life. They learned that the most profound truths are often the quietest. They learned that courage comes in many forms. It comes in grand gestures. It comes in whispered promises. It comes in difficult choices. This expanded story of the Blackwoods resonated far beyond their quiet New England town. Arthur's work inspired countless others. It inspired them to explore their own family histories. It inspired them to uncover their own quiet truths. His books became bestsellers. His lectures captivated audiences. He always began with the story of Isabella and Alistair. He began with the story of Eleanor. He began with the story of the Blackwood family. The very concept of identity was redefined. It was no longer a rigid construct. It was a fluid, evolving narrative. It was shaped by ancestry. It was shaped by love. It was shaped by choice. It was shaped by the brave decisions of those who came before. It was a powerful message. It resonated deeply. Arthur always emphasized the role of empathy. He emphasized the role of understanding. He stressed the importance of listening. He listened to the whispers of the past. He listened to the unspoken stories. He learned to see the profound in the ordinary. He learned to find the heroic in the human. The Blackwood estate continued to stand. It stood as a testament. It stood as a monument. It stood not to an unbroken bloodline. It stood to an unbreakable spirit. It stood to the enduring power of a family. It stood to a family that chose truth. It stood to a family that chose love. The sun still set on the Blackwood estate. The shadows still lengthened. The stars still emerged. But now, the house glowed differently. It glowed with a quiet pride. It glowed with a profound peace. It glowed with the warmth of a story fully told. It glowed with the light of truths fully embraced. It was a beacon. It was a beacon for all families. It was a beacon for all who seek their own quiet truths. The legacy of the Blackwoods was no longer confined. It was no longer confined to old money. It was no longer confined to peculiar quirks. It was a legacy of honesty. It was a legacy of compassion. It was a legacy of enduring love. It was a testament to the extraordinary power of an ordinary family. It was a testament to the quiet strength of the human heart. The story echoes still. It echoes in the rustling leaves. It echoes in the gentle sea breeze. It echoes in the hearts of those who hear it. It reminds us of who we are. It reminds us of where we come from. It reminds us of the profound connections that bind us all. It reminds us that every family holds a universe. It reminds us that every truth holds a key. It reminds us that love, in its purest form, is the greatest treasure. It continues its gentle, timeless whisper. It reminds us always that IT reminds us always. The Blackwood family, enriched by their discoveries, began to live their legacy differently. Elias, a changed man, established the Blackwood family archives. It was a dedicated space in the mansion. It housed Isabella's journal. It housed Alistair's photograph. It housed all the letters. It housed the locket. It was a testament to their newfound openness. He also commissioned a local artist. The artist painted a new family portrait. This portrait included Isabella and Alistair. They were depicted in the background. They were looking down with benevolent smiles. It was a subtle, powerful statement. Beatrice, ever practical, reorganized the entire mansion. She incorporated the newly understood history into its very fabric. She curated special displays. These displays highlighted artifacts from Isabella's time. They highlighted Alistair's cartography tools. She even found an antique telescope. It was similar to one Isabella described in her journal. She placed it in the drawing room. She pointed it towards the stars. She imagined Isabella looking up. She imagined her searching for Alistair's constellation. Margaret's writing soared to new heights. Her first novel, The Cartographer's Secret, became a sensation. It was a fictionalized account of Isabella and Alistair's love. It wove in the Blackwood family's adoption. It became a powerful story of love and sacrifice. Critics praised its emotional depth. Readers were captivated by its historical authenticity. She dedicated the book to Arthur. She dedicated it to the quiet truth seeker. Thomas, now a celebrated artist, found his signature style. He painted ethereal portraits. They captured the spirit of historical figures. He focused on their hidden lives. He focused on their untold stories. His Unbroken Promise series, inspired by Alistair and Isabella, toured major galleries. His beige toaster still occasionally appeared in his still life compositions. It was now depicted with a knowing, almost whimsical presence. Arthur, our young Arthur, embraced his future. He pursued his historical studies with vigor. He traveled to libraries. He traveled to museums. He sought out other hidden family histories. He believed every household held a secret. He believed every secret held a profound truth. He carried the locket. He carried it everywhere. It was a constant source of inspiration. Mittens, the family cat, continued her dignified existence. She observed everything. She judged nothing. She remained Arthur's most trusted confidant. She would often nap on Isabella's journal. She would often nap on Alistair's framed photograph. It was as if she, too, understood the weight of history. It was as if she understood the comfort of truth. The Blackwood family, now truly united, found joy in sharing their story. They hosted annual gatherings. They invited historians. They invited genealogists. They invited curious neighbors. Elias, once so reserved, spoke eloquently. He spoke of the journey of discovery. He spoke of the power of acceptance. Beatrice shared anecdotes. She shared them with a rare, genuine warmth. Margaret read excerpts from her novels. Thomas displayed his latest works. Arthur, though young, captivated audiences. He spoke of the human heart. He spoke of its resilience. The mansion itself transformed. It no longer felt dusty and ancient. It felt alive. It felt vibrant. The creaking floorboards now seemed to whisper tales. The hidden passages invited exploration. The taxidermied squirrels, dressed in their tiny historical costumes, became symbols. They were symbols of their family's eccentric charm. They were symbols of their enduring spirit. The cursed teacups, once thought to whisper prophecies of doom, now seemed to hum with contentment. They whispered tales of new beginnings. They whispered tales of hope. The petrified lizard, still in its secret room, occasionally twitched. Its prophecies were now surprisingly optimistic. They spoke of clear skies. They spoke of bountiful harvests. They spoke of peace. The Blackwood family realized that their heritage was not diminished. It was amplified. It was made richer. It was made more complex. It was made more beautiful. They were no longer simply the Blackwoods. They were the Blackwoods with a story. They were the Blackwoods with a legacy of courage. They were the Blackwoods with a foundation of unconditional love. Elias eventually retired from his financial dealings. He devoted his time to the family archives. He ensured its meticulous upkeep. He added new generations of Blackwoods. He added their stories. He included their quiet truths. He instilled in them a love for history. He instilled in them a respect for authenticity. Beatrice continued her quest for rare buttons. Her collection grew vast. It grew legendary. Each button represented a fragment of history. Each button held a story. She began to write her own memoirs. They were filled with wisdom. They were filled with insights. They were filled with her own peculiar observations. She shared them only with her family. Margaret's literary career flourished. She wrote many novels. All explored the intricate dance of family. All explored the delicate balance of truth and fiction. She inspired countless young writers. She inspired them to find their own voices. She inspired them to tell their own stories. Thomas became renowned worldwide. His art adorned public spaces. It graced private collections. He never forgot the broken toaster. He kept it in his studio. He used it as a reminder. It reminded him of where he came from. It reminded him of his journey. Arthur, true to his calling, became an eminent historian. He pioneered a new field. It was the study of quiet histories. He focused on the undocumented narratives. He focused on the personal stories. He focused on the profound impact of individual choices. His work resonated deeply. It touched millions. He proved that history was not just about empires. It was not just about wars. It was about the human heart. It was about the choices we make. It was about the love we share. The Blackwood name, once associated with old money and quiet eccentricity, gained a new reputation. It became synonymous with integrity. It became synonymous with intellectual curiosity. It became synonymous with human compassion. The family's story, once a secret, became a beacon. It was a beacon for others. It was a beacon for those grappling with their own pasts. It was a beacon for those seeking their own truths. The mansion remained their home. It remained their sanctuary. It stood as a living testament. It stood to the enduring power of family. It stood to the liberating force of truth. It stood to the transformative nature of love. The legacy was no longer a burden. It was a gift. It was a gift to be cherished. It was a gift to be shared. The once tumultuous journey into their history had brought unexpected blessings. It had forged an unbreakable bond. It had fostered a deep understanding. It had ignited a collective purpose. They had discovered that true identity was not inherited. It was earned. It was earned through courage. It was earned through honesty. It was earned through the unwavering love they shared. The sun still cast long shadows across the Blackwood estate. The seasons continued their endless cycle. The world outside changed rapidly. The Blackwood family, however, remained steadfast. They remained connected. They remained true to themselves. They were Blackwood. They were authentically Blackwood. They were eternally Blackwood. Their quiet truth, once a threat, had become their greatest strength. It had become their most cherished possession. It echoed through their lives. It echoed through their generations. It echoed, a constant, gentle whisper. It guided them. It defined them. It always reminded them that it always reminded them. Arthur, the eminent historian, eventually grew old. He grew gracefully. His hair turned silver. His eyes still held that youthful spark of curiosity. He never stopped exploring. He never stopped uncovering quiet histories. His work spanned decades. It touched countless lives. He became a living legend. He became a beacon of historical truth. The Blackwood mansion became a historical landmark. It was preserved for future generations. It opened its doors to scholars. It opened them to curious visitors. The Blackwood family archives grew. It grew into a renowned institution. It contained countless quiet histories. It contained them from across the globe. Elias's meticulous records proved invaluable. Beatrice's wisdom permeated the collections. Margaret's novels found a permanent home. Thomas's art inspired new exhibits. Arthur's children and grandchildren inherited his passion. They inherited his deep respect for the past. They continued his work. They expanded his legacy. The Blackwood name became synonymous. It became synonymous with authentic history. It became synonymous with profound empathy. It was a complete transformation. It was a testament to one boy's simple curiosity. Mittens, the beloved family cat, lived a long, contented life. She was often depicted in Arthur's later portraits. She was always nestled at his feet. She was always watching. Her quiet wisdom became part of the family lore. She was remembered fondly. She was remembered as the silent guardian of truth. The taxidermied squirrels remained. They were still in their tiny costumes. They now stood as whimsical symbols. They symbolized the charm of eccentricity. They symbolized the beauty of individuality. They were no longer judgmental. They were simply observed. They were simply admired. The cursed teacups still whispered. They whispered their gentle prophecies. They prophesied peace. They prophesied understanding. They prophesied interconnectedness. The petrified lizard's forecasts became legendary. They were always accurate. They were always optimistic. It predicted good harvests. It predicted clear skies. It predicted enduring happiness. The Blackwood family continued their traditions. They celebrated their lineage. They celebrated their unique blend of blood and choice. They honored Isabella and Alistair. They honored Eleanor. They honored the quiet courage of their ancestors. Their annual gatherings grew larger. They grew more inclusive. They attracted people from all walks of life. Everyone wanted to share their own quiet truth. Arthur's final book was his memoir. It was titled The Locket Secret. It chronicled his life's journey. It chronicled his family's transformation. It became his magnum opus. It was a profound reflection. It was a testament to the power of personal history. It was a testament to the enduring human spirit. It sold millions of copies. It touched hearts worldwide. He wrote about the subtle shifts. He wrote about the gradual changes. He wrote about the slow unfolding of understanding. He wrote about how a single secret, once feared, became their greatest strength. He wrote about the beauty of vulnerability. He wrote about the courage of acceptance. He wrote about the profound meaning of family. His last lecture was given in the drawing room. It was given in the Blackwood mansion. It was filled with his family. It was filled with his colleagues. It was filled with admirers. He spoke without notes. He spoke from the heart. He held up the tarnished silver locket. It was now polished to a soft gleam. "This," he said, his voice soft but clear, "is more than just an heirloom. It is a symbol. It is a symbol of every untold story. It is a symbol of every hidden love. It is a symbol of every courageous choice." He looked around the room. His eyes twinkled with warmth. It reminds us that our past is not a rigid chain. It is a vibrant tapestry. It is woven with countless threads. Each thread matters. Each thread tells a story. He spoke of the universality of their tale. He spoke of the shared human experience. He spoke of the common thread of longing. He spoke of the common thread of connection. He spoke of the liberating power of authentic living. He spoke of the profound joy of self-discovery. He spoke of the enduring power of unconditional love. The room was silent. Every person was captivated. Every heart was touched. He concluded his lecture. He received a standing ovation. It was not just for his words. It was for his life. It was for his legacy. It was for the quiet truth he had brought to light. Arthur passed away peacefully in his sleep. He passed away in the Blackwood mansion. He was surrounded by his loving family. His passing marked the end of an era. It also marked the beginning of a new one. His spirit lived on. His teachings endured. His legacy flourished. The Blackwood mansion continued to stand. It stood proudly on its New England coast. It weathered countless storms. It welcomed generations of visitors. Its walls held stories. Its gardens held memories. Its archives held truths. It was a monument to honesty. It was a monument to love. It was a monument to family. The quiet truth of Isabella and Alistair. The compassionate act of Eleanor. The brave acceptance of Elias and Beatrice. The artistic expressions of Margaret and Thomas. The unwavering curiosity of Arthur. All these elements combined, they created something extraordinary. They created a living, breathing testament. They created a beacon of hope. The Blackwood family story became more than their own. It became a global narrative. It transcended time and place. It resonated with people seeking meaning. It resonated with people seeking connection. It resonated with people seeking truth. It showed that even the smallest, most personal secrets can hold universal significance. The rustling leaves outside the mansion still whispered. They whispered Arthur's name. They whispered Isabella's song. They whispered Alistair's promise. The sea breeze carried their echoes. It carried them across the continents. It carried them through the generations. It carried them into the heart of humanity. The stars still emerged over the Blackwood estate. They shone brightly. They shone with an ancient, knowing light. They looked down on a house. They looked down on a family. They looked down on a legacy. It was built not on illusion. It was built on integrity. It was built on love. It was built on truth. It was a story for the ages. It was a story for all time. It continues to echo. It continues to inspire. It continues to remind us all. It reminds us of the profound beauty of our own quiet truths. It reminds us of the endless power of love. It reminds us always. Thank you once more for exploring these hidden histories with me. It has been a privilege to share these stories. I hope they resonate with you. I hope they inspire you to look deeper. Until our next historical adventure, stay curious, keep questioning, keep seeking the truth. Goodbye for now.